96% of business owners and C-suite said AI will fundamentally change their company for the better, and they are all hands-on. Everyone should be behind it. What was interesting, the same survey went out to rank and file workers, and 77% of them said that it actually increased their workload. Actually, I'm working harder than I ever have with the addition of AI. I'm being buried by additional tasks, additional work, additional things to correct. You have a very small cadre of folks saying that this is going to be revolutionary and change the world. And then you have a much larger percent of the population saying, let's slow down.
You're listening to Media Monitor, where we break down what's happening in the media and the advertising industry and tell you what it actually means. Sean, welcome back. How's it going?
Great. How are you, Kelly?
Oh, I'm good. I'm super excited. We have a lot to cover today, Sean. It's a big day in the world. Well, not a big day. It's a big,
I would say just a day.
Time. It's just a day.
Just a day. We're just plugging away.
But this day, in kind of like the scheme of things, you know, in the AI scheme of things,
sure.
it's I don't know. I feel like right now there's so much going on in AI that we have to talk about it because things are changing so fast, and we've got to capture this moment.
Sure. Let's talk AI. I feel like it's inevitable, right? Like at some point you're going to have to talk about it if you're in advertising. And today's our day.
Today's our day. Well, and you don't sound as excited as I am, so I'm going to bring the energy here and
Venn
get
diagram.
you there.
Venn
get
diagram.
You there. But so why today? Why do I want to talk about it? A few reasons. First, Anthropic filed their S1. They are targeting October for their IPO with a projected 1 trillion with a T valuation.
Bananas.
I know, but they're not the only ones, right? So
No.
SpaceX, which, you know, you think of as rockets, SpaceX is actually bigger than that. They've got XAI, Grok is kind of nested into that. They're targeting a listing date of June 12th, and they have a valuation of north of a trillion. I think it's 1.75 trillion.
Even more bananas.
Right. And so, you know, with that, and we know OpenAI is in talks, and OpenAI being the only one who's really got like this kind of official ad strategy. I mean, Grok kind of has it, but this has implications for our community. So we have to think about what's going to happen in the world of advertising as it relates to these companies going public and potentially more of them running ads. In addition, we are 3 weeks out from Cannes Lions. And for those who don't know, you know, this is like the Oscars of advertising. This is a fancy event held in June every year where the
in
creatives...
the south of France, by the way. Not just a fancy event, but it's a fancy event in a fancy place doing fancy stuff. It's like,
It is, yes. It's like, so it's for marketing, advertising, creatives. They come together. They're on yachts. And they're talking. They're getting together. So we wanted to take a look at what's on the agenda for that. And spoiler alert, we want to see how much does AI show up in that agenda. So we'll talk about that. And then lastly, the Pope. The Pope is talking AI.
Of the Catholic Church.
That's right.
Yeah.
And before we get into it, I have to share a little anecdote, Sean.
Absolutely. Go for it.
So
put my business out there.
I absolutely. A few weeks ago, you were out of office. Somebody needed your bio. I thought I could grab it. I didn't have it. So I'm stalking your LinkedIn and I realized you went to Villanova.
I did.
I didn't know. So I immediately Slack you and talk to you about it because, you know, on my husband's side of the family, like half of them went to Villanova, big Wildcats community.
Sure.
And naturally, our conversation evolves to the Pope. And you tell me something crazy,
He is a Wildcat
Sean.
himself. So, you know, in the 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon kind of game, I am actually only, twice removed from the Pope. My college roommate's father was, you know, roommates and friends with the Pope back in the Wildcat days. So not very far removed from the Pope himself, His Holiness. So that's my special connection.
I love it. I think you were telling me he's wearing like Villanova gear.
Yeah, he was. I forget how he got the hat, but they gave him a hat. Like I want to say maybe like 6 7 months ago, and like my LinkedIn feed from the official Villanova channel was literally nothing but like pictures of the Pope in the Villanova hat. Like people were going bananas for it, of course. And I think I again really wrong here, but I think there was also something involving the Knicks because there's a couple of Knicks players that are former Wildcats. That's like a big deal.
Big deal.
So there's been a whole thing.
Did you just shout out the Knicks on the first day
I
of the
I
NBA Finals?
I tried to.
I
I ham-fisted it. I was reading an interesting article that they are now allowing the watch party to go down in Times Square for the first game,
Oh,
which is
that
they
was a big
previously prohibited. Now they're saying actually it's cool. Go ahead. So that's pretty exciting stuff. So yeah,
I
I'm trying to maybe connecting it to last week with sports stuff. Every week I'm gonna try to be a little bit better about sports.
I sent my son to school in head to toe orange and blue today. He's really repping it hard. So
Nice.
hopefully we get that Knicks
My
win.
kids did
But
not have orange or blue today at all.
well, we'll keep tabs on these NBA playoffs. But let's shift gears. So I think let's start first with Can
Yeah.
and the agenda, because you called something out to me that I thought was really interesting about how it's changed since last year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like from a vibes perspective, I just felt like the AI conversation from vibes seemed to be petering out, and so I like, of course, me being the numbers guy, the wanted to kind of jump in. I'm like the play by play. You're like the color commentator to again sports reference, but like going into it, I was like, okay, well, let me try to find the program from last year. And so I was actually able to find it on the Internet Archive. They have it listed, and was able to like cross reference for this year, and then just kind of like wanted to kind of get a quick check on the panels to see if like my vibes felt correct. And I would say if those are the only two data points, my vibes are correct. So this year there is a total of 7 panels across all of Can dedicated to AI. What's fascinating though is that 2 of the 7 are actually like, I don't want to say anti-AI, but almost like framing as to like how creative and like human created endeavors can
Mhm.
survive in an AI age, right? It's not the
Mm,
like heavy-handed, this is how you use AI. It's actually the alternative. And so there's like 2 of them that are presenting the like, as AI has continued to mature and infuse itself into the ad ecosystem, here's how we are different, here's how we position ourselves, right? And so there's 2 panels specifically on that. Last year though, roughly a third of all content was AI related at Cannes. And for context, by the way, there's usually like 150 hours of panels. You're basically looking at like 10-ish hours of AI content this year versus like 50 last year. So it's a measurable drop in terms of the focus and conversation. And I think it's like potentially 2 reasons. One is, a lot of, to maybe your earlier comment of like things are going crazy leaps and bounds. I would say like, yes, the AI headlines have been growing by leaps and bounds, but when you look at like the innovation that's happening in advertising, I'd say
mhm.
that has been kind of slowed, right? There was last year, a lot of the panels were focused in on video generation, right? With like, oh my God, look how fast this has evolved. You no longer need to do creative. You can just have AI create all of your video content, all of these things, right? And then this year, much more muted, right? ChatGPT has kind of like backed out of their video generation kind of component, right? They're focused
Yeah.
mostly on search. So it's like, if you think even like there is a lot of movement, but some of it isn't always this forward progression. Some of it's actually taking a step back. And I think that's kind of some of the vibe that we're seeing is like the realities of on the ground AI stuff meeting the like press release panel. Here's all these cool things. And also just to caveat, right? Like thinking about the audience, you're talking to a whole bunch of marketers and creatives who've built their entire careers and lives on producing something themselves to say this is what's unique or interesting. So like AI is a very real threat to many of those folks there. So there is also a sensitivity that is like, hey, this is an industry event that is very much focused on human created endeavors where AI is often a big threat to that. Whereas in other places, right, like a tech conference of like, how are you building a better backend, right? There's a lot more receptivity to something like AI because you're like, well, yeah, like I'll use that all day to code and kind of help me, structure my, iterative loops in Python so I don't have to code that. That's great. Yay, right? Like it's a different feel. at Cannes because it's a different audience who wants different things, both from AI and the overall ad industry. So I think it's a mixture thereof of why we've seen kind of a decline, at least in terms of the official panels. Who knows all of those conversations that happens on yachts, etc. What it will eventually inevitably drift to AI, but I'm talking like structured, scheduled panels.
Yeah, and another I think it's a really good data point for us to consider, right? So a huge reduction in the number of coverage and then what in the panels that do exist, a reshaping of the dialogue to focus on how we can coexist with AI, right? And the other piece of can is like who's going, right? It's the big brands, the big dogs. It's not the mom and pops. The 10-person company that emerged that's living and dying by, you know, Meta's AI tools to launch
Yep.
their campaigns. They're not at Cannes. So it's almost like, how is this conversation shifting for the big brands versus the little guys? And, like, I mean, I, for one, like, I'm mad I didn't get a chance to make my own AI slop video before ChatGPT ripped it out of my clutches because that would be fun. But like, what am I doing with that? Like, what is that? What meaning am I
For lulz.
creating? Yeah, it's just like just
Yeah,
for
for memeing.
for
Meme
memeing.
videos. Yeah, for
What
meme
what
videos.
what? Not for meaning, but for memeing.
Memeing, yeah, no, not meaningless, but
Exactly.
meaningful?
I
Yeah,
never will get that chance. But
never.
yeah, I mean, I think, and that's a little bit of like, segueing into the Pope's commentary. I think he was
Yeah,
kind of saying let's like, let's take a beat here, right? Like things are going really fast. I think he said we need to disarm AI. We need to, this is not a race. Let's figure out how to use it to support everyone in the right ways, but like let's slow down before just blindly accepting this acceleration into our world. And so like I think that this is representative of a segment of the community who's saying no, we're gonna shift back to our North Star, and we're going to talk about it because we'll need to talk about it, but it's not going to be a huge percentage of the content,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, my to kind of swing it back to kind of industry specific stuff as well is it was fascinating, right? Because who was there was Anthropic during the Pope's encyclical. They've kind of spoken with the Pope around kind of the future of AI and all of these things. And I shared with you a few articles that like went into depth about it, but it's also maybe cynically a really brilliant marketing move in that Anthropic was there, but OpenAI was not, right? And it's this ongoing debate now between like the good AI versus like the power hungry AI, which again, I don't buy into either of those kind of things, but from a marketing perspective, right? There is a lot of that's happening right now in terms of Anthropic saying no to, a government contract that they felt would kind of violate their ethics. A day later, OpenAI kind of signs it and says, "Yeah, we'll help out," etc. And it's like this very interesting framing where Anthropic obviously can say no to business. They are doing very well for themselves. But alternatively, so is both of them, right? OpenAI is also doing very well, at least in terms of growth, right? We'll maybe talk a little bit about in a minute, like revenue expectations, things like that. But it is a fascinating dynamic that's at play that I think we saw some of that in kind of the Pope's message, but also the Pope's unsaid message of like who was there and who was present in terms of the conversation. And kind of Anthropic was all over it, but OpenAI was kind of not to be found, which I also thought was a fairly interesting dynamic.
Well, you kind of think about just the sentiment of folks who are interacting with AI. You've got like business owners, corporate executives, and then you have, the day-to-day
The rank
worker
and
who
file.
is trying to figure out like how do I use this and grow with it? Is this unseating my job? You hear there's been a lot of talk about when AI gets mentioned at a commencement speech, we're in that kind of graduation season, right? The kids are booing. They're
Yep.
booing because they can't find jobs and they're competing with a computer.
Yeah.
And so I think, Anthropic, it was a really smart play to be there because they're speaking to the people.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, to your point too, right? I shared this with you earlier, but I'm reading a book right now on OpenAI, and one of the interesting stats, kind of to leave the book, is in a recent survey, 96% of business owners in C-suite said AI will fundamentally change their company for the better, and they are all hands on. Everyone should be behind it. What was interesting, the same survey went out to rank and file workers, and 77% of them said that it actually increased their workload because they had both the existing work that they needed to do, expectations from the C-suite that with AI, so much of your job is automated that you can actually do more. But in
Mhm.
reality, most of the time spent was kind of cleaning up and addressing what is now being kind of termed work slop, where it's this like kind of automation output of things that historically would have maybe taken slightly longer to do by person, but now it's fact checking, going through, revising, making it feel more human in terms of communication, whatever it might be, and then ultimately outputting the same thing. And 77% of workers said, like, actually, I'm working harder than I ever have with the addition of AI because it's not necessarily like in some cases it's making me more productive. In other cases, I'm being buried by additional tasks, additional work, additional things to correct, where I'm actually having less time to do things, which I thought was a interesting dynamic that we've seen now.
Mhm.
I've seen it across actually five or six surveys where it's kind of almost to a T the same dynamic. Like you have a very small cadre of folks saying that this is going to be revolutionary and change the world, and then you have a much larger percent of the population saying, "Let's slow down. There are
Yeah.
things that we need to think through. We're in the weeds. We're in the details. This isn't as like cut and dry as you might think. Here's some things we need to think about." And so it's this ongoing dynamic that I've seen play out, but it's fascinating.
I mean, I can't tell you how much I'm using the word slop this year.
Yeah.
And I like,
It's gonna be
I
the
think it's
word
in
of the
the
year by
running.
Webster or whatever.
It's
Yeah.
100%. But so I was curious how Webster handles it when it's like the add-on.
Blank
Like I don't
slop. Yeah.
it's fill in the blank slop is going to
Yeah.
be word of the year for sure.
Yeah.
But so, okay, let's talk numbers a little bit because
Yeah.
getting we kind of started this with we've got two of the major players in this space filing for IPO. OpenAI is like definitely going to follow suit shortly. We made some predictions when they announced that they were going to have ads earlier this year, and now we have some data, right?
We
So
do.
how is it looking? How are they doing? Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So at a high level, right, without getting first into it, I think obviously as we think about IPOs, the companies are going to have to show their books at some point, and they're going to have to show for all of that capex of building the data warehouses, powering the AI, the R&D that goes into them, which is incredible, right? But also expensive,
Mhm.
is being offset by what is the big question mark. In the case of
Yep.
Anthropic, I think we've seen recently in the last couple of weeks that they opted to increase their token costs significantly to a point now where a lot of companies are backtracking on their AI budgets. Or in the case of, I could be wrong, but I believe it was Uber that kind of blew through their annual AI budget on tokens in just 3.5 months because of both increased costs, but also as they were incentivizing people to use chatbots more, people were just creating chatbots for everything and it was just burning tokens. So it didn't help then that Anthropic both increased the cost of tokens and people were then also incentivized to use them more. So universally, Anthropic has opted to kind of go for a revenue model that is both, hey, pay to play, but also for our more specialized services around kind of these like headless agentic solutions. All of this, we're going to charge you a little bit more than we have. My guess is this is like a frog in a pot kind of situation that they're
Mhm.
just going to slowly increase costs until they can kind of show by paper come IPO filing date that like they are nearing profitability. I doubt that they will be, but trying to close that gap, especially if we think about whatever X is going to come out with, as well as whatever OpenAI is going to come out with in terms of their profitability. My guess is that Anthropic is trying to close that gap to make them look the best financially in terms of soundness. So that was their attempt.
Yeah, and to your
OpenAI,
point wait, but just real quick, to
I'm
your point,
waiting.
it's a ton of work for companies who are running these tools to manage their employees' use of these tools. Like,
Yeah.
what is the line that you draw to say, "You should have it proofread this email, but not that email," right? Like,
You
and are
should
you using it
implement
to
an
proofread
AI
emails?
solution to go through and police the other AIs. A
I
chatbot to rule all other chatbots.
And I think we could be headed there, right?
Could
Like, this
be.
feels very needed because, like, that line is just so gray, and it
Yeah.
depends on your role and your level and internal versus external, and there's so
Yeah.
many factors. So, okay,
So many.
I'll get off I'll get off my
Yeah.
operational policing soapbox
Sure.
because
Sure.
I love
Wait until
controls.
they release an org chart where it's like, this is the manager AI that will ultimately make automated decisions about whether or not mini AI can make a decision about an email to manage tokens. It'd be great.
Exactly.
Be
We're
great.
doing it. It's happening. We're in the future.
It's coming. Yeah. Yeah, so that was their revenue model. OpenAI has opted more so to still charge for more premium accounts and features, but opted to kind of go the route of advertising. So that was kind of the dynamic, right? And that's, I think, kind of started the riff with Anthropic earlier this year, where come January, Anthropic was out in the Super Bowl, out advertising, being like, we don't have ads, versus kind of OpenAI being a little more quiet about it, but announcing that we are happily kind of rolling out ads. So we see the data, right? We see ad spend, and what's interesting is that it's been mixed for what we can see from OpenAI. The month over month growth rates in terms of when it launched or when it was announced and launched, then like month 2, month 3, month 4 have been astronomically growing, right? The first month over month was 17,000% up, then 954% up, then 644% up. So one, obviously a slight slowing, but then two, obviously these like skyrocketing rates. What's fascinating is when you look at other companies that have opted to launch an ad product, because we have those in our data going
Mhm.
back in time, the month over month growth rates are nowhere near OpenAI's. So on average, in that first month where OpenAI month over month grew 1,700%, across other players that we looked at, the average growth rate was 340.
But they were also coming from 0, right?
All
Like,
zero, universally across the board, all zero, went from zero to something. And then at that something, what was the month after it was kind of how we
okay,
did the
okay.
measurement. So yeah, so there's kind of been this spike. And so like on the positive, OpenAI's acceleration has grown tons in our data. But what's interesting is when you look at the actual dollars, it's far lower at this point now. We're like in month 3 of it in our data. But as a month, sorry, I meant month 5. Apologies. Month
It's okay.
5. Yeah, I was like month 3. I was like, I'm looking at month 3 here. But like month 5, the dollar amount is still pretty low compared
Mm,
to other platforms at this point. Like if you looked at a TikTok or even Threads or Netflix or Amazon Prime Video, and I get some of them like Amazon Prime Video, they just turned on ads and they like had kind of the mechanism because they served ads elsewhere versus like OpenAI is actually building something from scratch, which is a much harder endeavor.
yeah.
So you can kind of like say weighted against it, but either way, it is clear, even within our kind of slice of the market, that this alone is not going to get them to profitability anytime in the near future in terms of what we're seeing from a dollar perspective. We're talking, single digit, low double digit millions of dollars when their hope was like by year end, they're $1 billion business. I am a bit skeptical that they are going to get there, 5 months in with what we are seeing in our data. And again, coverage
Yeah.
of like what we see in our data isn't the total market, but like our directions are usually pretty good that we can kind of get a good bead, and we do forecasting around like revenue for other companies that like I feel confident enough to say this isn't going to get them to $1 billion even with what we have line of sight into.
Well, I think so I have 2 reactions to that. One that kind of reinforces this plateauing and one that is a little more optimistic. The first, so on the plateauing side, I keep going back to how, in the more like social advertising networks and platforms, the volume of ads that can be run from a single individual who can create multiple personas and accounts is how they can scale, right?
Mhm.
I can have multiple accounts where I'm running like say I am a like fitness instructor, nutritionist. I could have a food account, a workout account, like all these different things just from me.
Sure.
In chat, I'm just me. I'm just me
Yeah.
asking questions, right? So, like, that to me signals plateauing. The other end of it that could be more optimistic is they went to market with a very simple ad basic, right? More ad units, more creative types of ad units could emerge, could
Good.
garner a higher price points. I just don't know like what their plans are with that, but there's an opportunity, right? Like you can introduce more ad units, different types of ads. I like it just depends on if they do that and how they charge for it. And
Yeah,
also
for
like
sure.
who's buying them? Like are these ads effective?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either, but I would at least say like where I would maybe close on my thoughts are like we're still very early in the game here, right? I don't think the Gen AI search ads of today will look anything like they do in 5 years. It's all technology where you kind of like start from a place that kind of is vaguely like the technology that became before it. So the Gen AI search ads today look awfully similar to a search ad from just like SEO from
Yeah.
yesteryear, right? It's
Old
not
school.
wildly different. Yeah, it's not wildly different. So you start someplace that you build off the tech there, and in like 3 or 4 years, it becomes a fundamentally different look, feel, and becomes this unique channel where you're like, I have to invest in this. My strategy for this is different. My look is different, etc. But we're not there yet. The other thing is that I've seen a bunch of studies that have tried to like reproduce the same results, and because it's probabilistic, you are not getting the same result every time you prompt, even if the prompt is identical. And so as a result, it's often very hard for advertisers to figure out like, will my ad get served here when it really needs to be versus when over here where it's not. And because it's
Hmm.
probabilistic, sometimes it comes up, sometimes the response of the AI is different. And so like you are seeing some of that play out, I think, in terms of advertisers' willingness to kind of invest in the platform.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I think it was a good time to do a checkpoint. We have some data. We've got this event coming up. Got the Pope talking about AI. But where we are is kind of just like we still are feeling it out. It's
Yeah,
less of a concept and more in practice, but we still don't have definitive answers yet. I mean, we're still
absolutely
figuring
not.
it out.
100%.
So, all right. Well, good talking AI with you. I think
Yeah,
you got excited in there. I saw
I
you get
tried. I tried for the listeners at
excited.
home. I did it for them.
You did it.
I did it for
Well,
them.
I'm gonna just go put on my Knicks hat and get ready for tonight's big game
Yeah. Go Knicks or whatever.
or whatever.
Or
All right,
whatever. I don't even know
Sean.
who they're playing.
The Spurs.
Yep. Absolutely.
Jeez. It's gonna be an uphill battle with you, Sean.
Straight up. 90 degrees.
All right. Well, thanks again for the time, and I will see you next week, Sean.
See you next week. That's Media Monitor. Follow us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts every Wednesday for a new episode. And as always, thanks for listening.